Welcome guys. In the last video, we talked about the 3 S's of prompting for generative AI. We're going to be using this as a framework for me to show you some examples on different platforms. So our first platform that we're going to be mentioning is called Midjourney. Midjourney is probably the most popular and most advanced generative AI right now. It is run through Discord. So if you don't have a Discord account, you should set up a Discord account so you can access this and you can join their Discord server or use it in a private chat or add it to your own server. It's really up to you. If you pay for Midjourney, you can pay for subscriptions. You don't have to do it with their less advanced model, which would be V4. You can use V5. V5 is the most advanced at the moment of all generative AI, in my opinion. So let's start with crafting a prompt on Midjourney. Inside of Discord, you can go into this message bar at the bottom and type in // and it will open your prompt menu or your command menu, where you can start typing /imagine and you will see this button prompted for you to press, and a prompt box will come up that you can start typing in, as you can see. So this is where our prompts go, and we will ask it to generate anything and it will spit us out 4 example images. So let's say we wanted a giraffe in a field. We would press enter. So these images do take some time to generate, although it looks instant on this video because I cut it. But as you can see, our quote giraffe in a field is depicted in 4 example images right here. And they look pretty damn good. I'm not going to lie. This is already good, and this is a bad prompt. So from here, the way we're going to be using our prompts with our subject, style, and setting is to make it more specific and give you a desired result. It's not necessarily to make the images better in a quality sense. So let's start with another bad prompt so you can understand how the subject works in Midjourney. So your subject would be anything that is your main focus on your image. So this could be the landscape, which will be a setting if you have a subject inside of your landscape. But if it's just a landscape, such as a lake, it would be your subject. So if we typed in a lake in Alaska, that would be our subject. So let's generate this and see what it looks like. So here is another set of 4 images that Midjourney has generated for us of a lake in Alaska. But that doesn't really matter to us because we're trying to supercharge our business and our workflow with AI. So now that we know how to give Midjourney a prompt, let's give it a prompt for a UI mockup for a website that sells water bottles. So now that we know how to give Midjourney a prompt and we can understand the layout that it gives back to us, let's go in depth on what you can do with these 4 images. So we have buttons for U1, U2, U3, U4, and V1, V2, V3, V4. These buttons are either upscale, which is the U, or V, which is variation of said number. Top left is number 1, top right is number 2, bottom left is number 3, and bottom right is number 4. So now that you understand how Midjourney works, let's dive into this framework we've created of the 3 S's so you can really understand what each part does to an image. Now let's generate a product mockup for a water bottle, and let's say /imagine, let's say a red water bottle in a gym shot with a DSLR camera and wide angle lens. So if we analyze this prompt, although short, it does have our 3 S's. So our first S is the subject, which is a red water bottle. Our setting is the gym, so it's in a gym. And our style would be photorealism. And to capture photorealism in its truest sense, we need to describe the camera and or lens that we're using to shoot this. And I know if you're saying, oh, I'm not a creator, I don't understand photo lenses, I don't understand camera types. Well, we have linked below a list of very popular photographers, so you can check their styles, and artists are in here as well. You can check their styles to see if there's something you're going for, and you can reference their name and say, in the style of, insert name, whichever you pick, and it will give you a photorealistic or artistic style in that artist's style. Coming back into Midjourney, let's check out our images. This first image, which is image 1, looks very good. It looks very photorealistic. It looks like it's in a gym. The background is blurred, and it's a red water bottle, just as described. So that one's the best image. So let's click V1 and make some variations of this image. We can edit the prompt in here if we would like to. So we can showcase what the difference is between subject, style, and setting. So let's say a blue and white water bottle, which is changing our subject, and we'll keep our setting and our style the same. Now that Midjourney has generated our variations, let's see what they look like. Now, everything looks very similar. We still have our water bottle in the middle of a gym. The water bottle looks very similar to how the version 1 water bottle looked in our first image, but it's not blue and white. And this is because when you're making image variations after a previously generated image, it will keep pretty much everything the same no matter how you change your subject, because the subject is the main part of the image. And when you change the subject too much, it would have to change the whole image and it wouldn't be a variation anymore. So things like changing the colors and sizes of things aren't as applicable here unless you completely change your subject and generate a new image, not a variation. So now if we want a real blue and white water bottle, let's generate one right now. So what we can do is copy this prompt because we want everything else to be the same. And let's /imagine and paste this prompt in here. And now let's see how it generates a blue and white water bottle, which is our subject change from a red water bottle. Okay, now that Midjourney has generated our images, let's see what they look like. Now remember that Midjourney generates random images, so the perspective of the shots isn't exactly the same as the first images that we gathered. But as you can see, this is a blue and white water bottle and or a blue water bottle with white surroundings or white accents. So without specifying our style or our setting, it's hard for Midjourney to give us an exactly blue and white water bottle because there's so many ways it can make a water bottle blue and white. Now let's change our second S, which is setting. So let's imagine another prompt. Let's just do a blue water bottle this time. A blue water bottle. This time our setting will be floating through space, and this will also be shot with a DSLR camera and a 30mm lens. Let's change the lens just because it's a little bit easier to capture space with a specific lens. And let's see what this gives us. Now let's check our newly generated images of our water bottle in space. So as you can see, we have a blue water bottle, which is matching our space, which is also coincidentally blue. And now you can see that our setting is everything that isn't our subject, obviously. But what I mean by that is everything surrounding your subject is going to be changed when you change your setting unless you specify certain things to stay inside of your setting. So if I wanted it to be in space, but I wanted it to still be in a gym, I could say water bottle in a gym with space outside a window, and we could merge our settings. Now this is just the beginning to changing our setting. So let's change our setting one more time. We're going to keep it in space, but we're going to make it so the water bottle is a little bit easier to identify inside of space because we never really gave the space a color, so it just adapted to the blue of the water bottle. So now let's imagine a blue water bottle floating in a red nebula. Now this is still setting, but it is a more descriptive setting. Instead of just space, we have just described the color and the type of outer space that we would like to capture. And let's use a telescope to see if we can generate a telescope-looking image as if we're seeing it from Earth from afar. So we can say seen from a telescope, and if you wanted to be very specific, you could say something like the Hubble telescope or a big industrial type of telescope that could really capture it. So let's try that as well. Let's say from the Hubble telescope, and let's see how that changes our image by changing the style to a different type of photorealism with a different camera, but still photorealism. So we're just specifying our style, not changing our style. And we're also specifying our setting. So just because you're changing the wording doesn't mean you're changing your setting. It just means you're making it more specific, which is our goal here. Okay, so looking at these images that Midjourney has given us, we can see how the changes to our setting and our style affected the image. So in the previous image, we said floating through space. So just in space, didn't really specify what type of space. In image 2, you can kind of see what looks like Earth in the background, and it's shot with a camera. But now that we've specified that we're going from a telescope, there is no Earth or planets in the background because this is acting like it's being shot from Earth or from a planet. So we would just see the space in the background. So that's one way we can specify the photorealistic style that we want to give us more of a perspective view from a specified angle. So now that we've changed our setting, we can see that the nebula is red. I wanted to throw a nebula in there because just space would show a little bit of stars, and this cloud-like nebula is something that I really wanted to capture behind our image. So now that you see how changing our style and our subject and our setting gives us different results, so now we are going to take the same prompts into other platforms to see how they differ. So let's start with Illuna. Illuna is a new platform that is based on a website, not Discord. So Eluna differs from Midjourney in the way that it's kind of like Jarvis, where it gives you these sort of templates and options that you can pick if you don't really know what you want yet. And Midjourney is really all up to you and the AI to generate this image. You kind of have to work together. With this, it's telling you how you can work to get certain outputs. So let's take the exact same prompt and see what this platform gives us. So let's copy our blue water bottle being viewed from the Hubble telescope, and let's enter this prompt in here. So it automatically splits these prompts into tags based on the verbiage that we're using. So the blue water bottle floating in a red nebula is one aspect, and the perspective, which is seen from the Hubble telescope, or our style, which would be photorealistic with a perspective from a telescope, are separated. And as you can see, if we click on styles up here in the top right, we can change our style even more to talk about the lighting, another camera view, so we can say aerial view, which would contradict our telescope, so we're not going to do that. But we can also change our art style if we don't want a photorealistic view. We just want the perspective of the telescope with the style of a drawing, right? So another way that this platform suggests to you is literally with suggestions. It has a suggestions tab under your prompt box that you can click on these tags and or remove these tags with the X next to the tag, and it will add styles, settings, and subjects for you. Now, if we were about to generate our image with this pink button, you would see it costs a credit. And in these options, we can change the amount of steps that we use, and it will update our credit count to say more credits because it takes more power for the AI to generate using 90 steps as opposed to 20. And steps will make your image higher or lower quality and also take more time to generate. So let's just use 1 credit because you get 5 free credits and you can always top up on credits. Okay, so as you can see with what Eluna generated us, it doesn't differ as well as Midjourney, the subject from your setting. You can see this outline of the water bottle, but at the bottom of it, it kind of looks like it's inside of the nebula, or like the nebula cloud is encasing the water bottle. So you would have to be more specific if you wanted the water bottle not to be inside of the nebula, right? Because this says floating in a nebula. So if we could say floating in space around a red nebula, that would probably give us an image that's less merged into the nebula as if the cloud is consuming it and more like it's floating by it. Now let's give it another prompt, which will be this top one with our DSLR camera. And let's see what it does with that. But instead of having our style be realism, let's have our style be the Eluna style, which is more of an artistic type of style. So let's generate this. Now, as you can see with Eluna, it gave this sort of like an realistic because of the camera, but also an artsy type of vibe. You know, it's artistic as if someone had painted it or rendered it instead of taking it with a picture. And that's because of Eluna's special model, which is their Eluna AI prompting model. So this looks like the Adidas logo, which, you know, we didn't ask for, but you get some unexpected outputs when every image is random. But we still have our blue water bottle, and the reflections, I guess, could be considered as white. So we're good there. And this could be like the window or door entry from a gym, and shot from the camera. You know, it looks like it could be shot from a camera, but it also looks like it could be rendered with art. And this is just kind of one way that you can use their styling and their different models to change the way that you get your outputs as opposed to Midjourney, which is all up to you. So let's jump into our next platform, which is going to be Adobe Firefly. So Adobe Firefly has a text-to-image section if you have the beta. So let's go into here, and we see our text to image, and we can see all these examples, right? So a cool thing about this and about Firefly itself is that you can scroll through these for inspiration, and let's say, oh, I really like this plant, right? Psychedelic succulent plants. That's the prompt I used. So this is kind of also up to you, but it can also be up to other people if you take inspiration from them. So this seems like a really good prompt. Abstract 3D object with anamorphous forms made from glass, gold, cotton, dark green plastic, and gray concrete, orange light, and blue harsh light. So abstract 3D object is our subject. Our style would be the forms that it's made of and the lighting. So let's try this prompt, right, and see what it gives us. Now, as you can see, all of these images are very different because it's abstract, right? So when you give Firefly or Midjourney an abstract object, it will just generate it in random shapes, which can be cool if you're looking for a type of material use without kind of trying to conflict it with a shape or a style that isn't that material. So One thing that I think you all should notice by now is that there is no setting here. So all of the settings look the same. It is just a blank gray background that looks like it's in a studio room with just white or gray paper behind it. So let's take this and say object with anamorphous forms, right, made from our materials. And this is an example of how you can put the setting after the style if the setting will conflict the style. Because if we say in a room with anamorphous forms, the room would have the anamorphous forms made of glass, gold, cotton, plastic, and concrete. But if we go ahead and say an abstract object with anamorphous forms made from these sitting in a train, now we are not conflicting our setting with our style because our style wants to be applied to the subject, not the setting. And if you want your setting to have the style applied to it, you would put another style after the setting or inside of your setting. So as we can see, this looks like a two-person cross-seated train car, and the abstract anamorphous object, we'll call it, is sitting in between on the table, right? Here it is on the tracks with what seems to be some sort of odd train behind it. Here's another one sitting on a train. You see your seats back here. So now that our setting's been described, we don't get just this boring gray background. But let's see what happens if we say sitting in a train, right? Objects with anamorphous forms, or an object sitting in a train with anamorphous forms made of glass. Now let's see how this interprets it. While this image is generating, which it already did, wow, that was pretty quick, let's touch on the side right here before we talk about this image. You can see that this also has content types and styles and tones and lightings, just like Illuna has, but it also has the free open creativity of Midjourney. So if you want like a mix of both where, you know, I understand what these prompts will give me, but I really want to make sure it gets a synthwave or a palette knife sort of style without leaving it up to random, you can use Firefly to create that effect on top of your specified image. So let's look, and you can see that it still generates the train, but in some of these images, the train looks a little odd. The windows aren't correct, and there's a lot of colors, and sort of it looks like they're all made out of differing materials in certain places. Like this window is made of a completely different type of metal than this bronzy looking thing, because this is more of a goldish, and these are like black silicone, and the top over here has all these little abstract dots on it. So as you can see, it kind of understands where the setting should be as opposed to how it's applied to the style, but it can also get a little confused. But just for the sake of showing off these styling techniques that Firefly gives you, let's say palette knife. So now we'll regenerate this, and it will give us similar images when it loads, just like we had mentioned. So we know what we're getting, except now it looks like a different style, you know? You can see the top up here looks like it was drawn with a palette knife, and it leaves this splotchy paint type of effect all over everything. And all the windows and the movement, you can see it's in splotchy waves of paint, right? But adding this style on top of it just gives it another style for it to be confused with when you put all your styling after the train setting. So that was just one way that Firefly kind of combines Illuna and Midjourney. Now let's look at one more platform, which is DALL-E, and let's understand how it takes these prompts that we've given Midjourney, and let's see how these two seemingly similar platforms differ. So DALL-E 2 is very, very similar to Midjourney in the way where you just give it a free prompt and it will generate it, and you will get your image. But as you can see, when this generates, this has a completely different way of showing our images, right? It doesn't capture space as well. It's hard for it to understand the perspective if you don't give it one. And now you're going to have to play with Illuna and Midjourney so that you can understand which one is your favorite free prompt platform, because Adobe Firefly and Illuna are also free prompt platforms, but they also give you style suggestions and lighting suggestions. So they're more like suggestive free prompt platforms. So let's go back in here to DALL-E and just kind of see these images and see, doesn't really capture space. It's got an odd perspective. So this shows you that it generates the images differently than Midjourney does, because every time we've asked it to float through space, it gives us it floating through what's clearly space, either with Earth behind it or stars behind it, and you can tell that it's floating. Here, sometimes we can't even tell if it's a water bottle because of the perspective it gives. So we would have to say shot from top down, and we would have to say floating within space so that it doesn't get confused on what through space means, because this second image looks like it's kind of going through something and it's morphing this bottle from a top-down angle. So top-down will give us something like this, but we don't really want something like that. So let's say from the side and generate. So now we can confirm that space means something different to DALL-E 2 as it does to Midjourney, because this just means like almost nothingness, just like open space or empty space, not spaces in like outer space. So now we understand that we have to really be specific if we want a nebula or space-like effect behind our water bottle. But shot from the side now gives us this shot from the side that we wanted, like Midjourney. So we kind of have to mess around with these platforms and see what it randomly generates and what it keeps every time it randomly generates something, so that we can understand how to form these prompts. So even though you have your subject, your style, and your setting, you need to understand what each platform takes that setting, that style, and that subject as, because as you can see, this is pretty much the same prompt, but space means open, white, blank space here, as opposed to this blue, starry, earth in the background type of space that we get with Midjourney. And so now that you kind of understand that all these platforms differ in these ways, you can choose the one that better suits the needs that you're going for when you're creating things like product mockups, or you're creating things like graphics or web page layouts. And if you wanted to do a mockup, you would just say, sitting in a space, and it would just give you this white kind of background, right? But here you would have to say sitting in a studio room or something, so it would give you this white space-like type of effect. So it depends on the way you format your language within these platforms that allows you to get similar results. So for those of you that stuck around, I have a little bonus tip for you guys. So if we come back up here to our variation image, as you can see, we hit this V1 button and it gave us this. We said blue and white water bottle, but it didn't really give us a blue and white water bottle. So if you wanted more customizability with inside of your variation prompting, you could, let's use our upscale feature to upscale image 1. So let's wait for this to upscale. So now that our image has upscaled, we can click on it inside of Discord, click open in browser, and it will give us this link. Copy this link, close your tab, go back in here and hit /imagine, and we are going to paste our link in here, comma, let's say yellow and green nebula in background. So let's regenerate this, and you'll see that while this is generating, what it's going to do, as opposed to trying to change your subject to blue and white as opposed to red, or change your background to a different background, this will make variations less in the sense of trying to hone in on the randomness and more on trying to actually edit the image. So if you're just like, oh, this is close, I want it a little bit more random, the background needs to be a little bit different, I would suggest doing a variation. But if you wanted to literally edit the colors or the setting that it's in, this is a better bet for you, because this allows you to reference the image and change it, as opposed to reference the image to sort of regenerate it. So let's see what this looks like right now as it's generating. As you can see, this will give you a chance to see how kind of quick it generates if you have it on fast generation. So now we can see these images it's created, and now we have this, green, yellow nebula in here, but it's not perfect because the reference image we gave it has a red nebula in the background. So it kept this kind of red of the nebula while changing the colors kind of in the center and leaving this red on the outside. So that's just a little tip for you guys if you want more editing as opposed to regenerating in your images. Now, this last little tip I have for you guys is your settings. And my settings are Midjourney version 5, which you do need a subscription to use, high quality, medium style, stealth mode, remix mode, and fast mode. So this is going to give you these really, really high quality, in-depth results that you would get with your prompting. And if you were to change it to a different version or a different type of styling, it would like super hone in on your style if you did very high style, and like really saturate your greens and yellows, and it wouldn't look as natural. So, and with these recommended settings, I'm going to end this here, and I will see you guys in the next video.